Okay, good evening, Kenyans. Tonight, as we promised you, we have our guest, Apollo Edewa. He is president of BAM. That is Battle Axe Ministry. He deals with youth, and there are many issues that relate to youth that he will tell us. He's also a passionate young man, an entrepreneur, and so we will have time to listen to him. How is he breaking even as a young man, even in these challenging times, politically, both with the pandemic? So he will converse through several issues, and then as youths of this nation, we get to listen to him and understand what is happening. I also introduce my dear friend Abok. He has been also on this panel for some time. He is a resident panelist. Yeah, together with him, we converse through different topics, even as we contribute to the debates that are going on across the nation. So you are highly welcome. Apollo, feel free and just make your introduction before we delve into the topic of the day.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the introduction. And I think one thing that you forgot to tag me is that I'm a farmer as well. Good evening, everyone who is following us this evening. Privileged to be part of this panel to look at the issues that talk about young people. My name is Apollo Edewa. I'm a passionate young person, passionate about change in different spheres, particularly for change that is meaningful change for young people that seeks to either create opportunities for young people or just to look at areas that then how that organizations can support young people. So I am really passionate about different spheres of life that support young people, be it on education, be it on opportunity, or be it on policy. So glad to be part of this panel, and I look forward for fruitful engagement.
Okay, so maybe the first question, Edewa.
Yeah.
So youth as change makers. What is your take on that topic?
Yeah, youth as change makers, I believe that change has to be driven by young people. We can either choose to be change makers, and there are those who have chosen to be peacemakers. Being a peacemaker sometimes means that you want to enjoy a status quo, meaning you want everything to remain as it is and enjoy your peace. But being a change maker, then you have to step out of your comfort zone and be a little bit disruptive to then be able to confront the status quo and make sure that meaningful change is therefore achieved and realized in different spheres. And I think young people have a very big opportunity to do that, to create and bring about meaningful change. We cannot afford to, in many cases, we've seen people sitting in high tables in boardrooms, elderly people sitting in high tables in bedroom to decide for young people. But I believe that it is about time that young people lead change, whether it is change that leads to creation of employment by young people creating opportunities for themselves and for their peers, or change through policy, either as voters or as aspirants. We have to take up that role of creating change, meaningful change, and as well, just making sure that we have a meaningful change through the education system, being part of young people that then seek to enhance our skill. This change, if we have to really bring and make sure that the change we desire will benefit young people, then we would like to make sure that this change is therefore led by young people, particularly because given our demographic as young people. In this country alone, the participation of young people, if you look at during elections, young people are one of the majority of voters. However, we are not seeing young people really leading change, and yet we are supposed to get change in that space of policy by participating either as voters, either as policy, or either as aspirants, and at the same time being just part of the team that then agitates for change in policy, change in how budget are allocated to prioritize our issues, Eric.
Okay. Is being youth an agenda in itself? I've seen most people maybe in the quest for leadership or in the quest for any other opportunity in life. The only thing they present is the age that I'm a youth. Is being youth an agenda?
Yes, to some extent, Eric. I believe youth is one of the greatest resource that every country, particularly in Africa, in third world country, in sub-Saharan Africa, youth remain to be one of the major assets for a country, and that means any investment that goes to young people is an investment that can be quantified as an investment that will have a return of investment that is really good to our country. So in Kenya, particularly, young people, one of the government's major assets, because 75% of Kenya's population is under 35 years. And of that, 29 of that population is between the age of around 15 to 35. And therefore, this demographic can contribute immensely towards enhancing either good governance, calling for accountability, building the nation through creating opportunities, being entrepreneurs who then lead and create opportunities for young people. So if you employ young people, research actually indicates that young people who own enterprises tend to employ their fellow young people, meaning therefore that investing in young people, particularly creating opportunity for young people, has some level of ripple effect in making sure that opportunities are created for fellow young people. This is unconfirmed reports, particularly if you look at the elderly and older generation. They tend to also employ people who are their peers, And that's why for us, we think that, personally, I think for the government to harvest from this demographic dividend, then it is important that the government invests in young people, because there is evidence already that investment in young people means that investment in support, in creating a self-supporting system for their fellow peers. So I will defend and defend this point that truly being a young person is a resource that any government should really be proud of. And the opposite is true if you don't turn this demographic into a meaningful or into a useful asset, then they can be a problem. So it is a balance of two extremes, of create an environment where young people can play a very big role in creating opportunity for others, or ignore them at your own peril, meaning therefore that if you ignore them, you are likely to deal with very any societal challenges that might be brought about by frustration, because you have a very big frustrated lot, which is again the majority. You have to deal with unemployment and so many other things, that social issues that we may experience, including insecurity and young people being desperate, being lured to other not a very good ventures, or to an extent that they can even be radicalized, and they become either part of the terrorists, they join terrorist group, they join and other groups that are not necessarily contributing towards development to any country.
In terms of the youth joining the national conversation on strategy of economic recovery, and yet do we have formations as a youth that then when the table is set, we have someone who can go there and speak on our behalf and give the voice of the youth? Because when the Deputy President says that the youth should take up national conversations on strategy of economic recovery, he just can't do that with people in the market. We have to have formations, we have to be organized in a certain way.
Trevor, we're organized already, and I think Nerima put that out there and said we have an organization, or rather a consortium of youth-serving organizations. Does not mean that these are only youth that are doing advocacy. It means we have young people there who are doing a lot of finance trainings and everything. We have young people there who are doing capacity building in businesses and everything. These are some of the young people that need to be on that table, if there is any way. Because we have, it's interesting how we have a president and his deputy who are very good at saying things. They are very good at PR. But when it comes to the actual doing, it's a whole different conversation. So when they're saying that young people need to be part of this, like Nerima said, we are already the biggest market when it comes to the economic recovery of this country. We are already the people they're taxing more right now. You find that the same way Nerima said, I don't want to really keep repeating, but it has to come anyway. But we as young people, you find that you get a job that honestly cannot sustain you, so you need to get other extra jobs. So you find that, like, I as Shiko do like 3 jobs, 4 jobs in a month. And at the end of the month, that money is not even enough, but it's taxed. It's really taxed highly. When you look at your payslip at the end of the month and look at how much you're giving to KRA, it's like really shocking, being that you cannot equate that to any services in this country. But then these young people that they're saying need to be patriotic enough have not been told this is the table, this is where you people need to come in and discuss your issues. That platform is not there.
Okay. She has raised a number of issues. Me, I will focus on two. Maybe you can pick others from the conversation. One, to young people have a platform where they can articulate the change they want to make. And yeah, so can you respond to that? And then I ask the second question.
Yeah, it is, and I totally agree with what has been raised. And yeah, I know Nerima, and I think one thing, and I agree, is that young people not having a platform to bring about and negotiate is a biggest problem. And I will tell you, Eric, that three things that, of course, that hamper young people from participating in any of this. And we're talking of from participating in as people who can contribute to the economic development of a country, or towards policy and other things. Particularly for me, I think the biggest problem, Eric, is a platform. There's a lack of platform. Then young people do not have skills to engage with, communicate with the relevant authorities that can help them to really be able to structure something that is addressing young people's problem. The third thing is that there is the issue of lack of goodwill from the institutions, whether it's political goodwill, or whether it is then institutions that are supposed to create this environment for young people. There is a problem that young people already are facing, and institutions not wanting to really reflect and address the issues that young people face. So I will totally agree that there are no platforms for young people to be able to do this on one hand. However, on the other hand, young people have a role to play in making sure that we go for what we want. And that means us creating that platform. And then after creating that platform, we then say we want our issues to be addressed through this platform. So it is one thing I agree, there is no platform. The question, therefore, is, I also then believe that young people have what it takes to create a platform that can agitate for change, create a platform that can bring about that change. And that can start from the grassroots, coming all the way up to the national government. There is an opportunity for young people to participate in that table. And they are said, if we cannot be invited to the table, we will create a table and invite them. That we have that option of creating a table and invite them if they don't invite us into their table.
Okay. The other issue she raised was about organization. She seems to suggest that young people are disorganized. They have not created themselves maybe into teams or groups that are able to achieve a particular goal. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, Erika, this is laughable. One, because as far as much as I can agree with that, it is not a must that young people should always be forced to get organized, should always be forced to get into groups, into organizations for us to be heard. No, the Constitution of Kenya guarantees as a right as an individual, not as a group. And I believe, therefore, that I do not necessarily need to get into a group, into an organized kind of a group, for me to go and benefit from a social good. Because in what we are talking about here is a social good. All these things, we're talking about social good. And probably just to understand what a social good, what is it that we're really talking about whenever we talk about all these things. And just, Eric, if you allow me to highlight, is that we are talking of a public goods, and this public good play a very important role in advancing the socio-economic development of any specific country. And so we are talking about effective policies and sound governance systems always becoming the fundamental instruments that either guarantee transparent, equitable, and timely delivery of public goods. In all these things, what we want, particularly from as young people, when we say, oh, we want to be heard, we want to be involved, we are asking for public goods. And in countries with effective social economic policies, services are provided for the benefit of citizens. And in turn, citizens have the rational interest to participate in planning, in implementation, in monitoring, and voluntarily contribute towards the creation of such services to better their livelihoods. Similarly, countries with weak governance, limited citizens' involvement in policy making, provide little motivation for rational collective action, thus depriving citizens of the benefits of social services. And therefore, public spending and service delivery have the potential to greatly improve the lives of citizens, including youth. However, without proper monitoring and accountability, inefficiencies or misappropriation often prevent citizens from benefiting from these resources. So while the problem of poor public services is felt by everybody, for us, young people tend to be more affected. And I would like to see, therefore, systems and processes that work for the benefit of every individual Kenyan, not necessarily those who belong to a group. Whether we are in a group or not, we have a right, first as a Kenyan, and second, as a young person, we have a right for the government has to call for the government to provide an enabling environment. And providing this enabling environment it has everything to do with how do you allow me to get into entrepreneurship if I'm a young person? Do you want to get me into and force me into an environment where I have to pay $1 million before I even start my enterprise? So creating an enabling environment, and for young people, what we are saying, we are not asking the government, and sorry for young people who are asking the government to create jobs for them. No, the role of the government is not necessarily to create jobs, and the government is one of the biggest employer, yes, if you are getting into public service. But beyond that, if you do not have a space within the public service, we are saying that the government role is to create an enabling environment for us. If it is in employment, then the government has to create an enabling environment for us to be able to create jobs. And that means being able to create incentives for young people to be able to enter into entrepreneurship. That is number one. Number two, if it's an education, then the government is already doing enough to make sure that opportunities are provided, to make sure that there are scholarships through different schemes, whether privately offered, and we've seen corporates providing scholarships, or whether through government agencies, whether at a national level or a county level. The government was already doing that. We are already seeing them creating an enabling environment by making sure that every Kenyan is able to go to school, is able to attain education to a certain level, and beyond that, then becomes you can try and find your way out. So we are asking that the government has to provide an enabling environment, one, to be able for young people to be able to get jobs by either for themselves and for their peers. That is somehow creating an environment where I can easily get into entrepreneurship, then support me. But can you imagine I am a young person who is a startup, I enter into entrepreneurship, and the first thing you do, I've struggled, I've borrowed all this capital from friends, from banks, or wherever I've gotten this. I've got 500,000, and I start this business. I go to look for a business shop, and the owner of the business shop asks me for a goodwill of 300,000. We need to see the government coming in to do away with some of these things like goodwill. If you ask a young person for a goodwill of up to 500,000, and that is 500,000, and that is the money that I've got to start my business, then you're locking me out from opportunities. Much as I might have identified an opportunity, a strategic place for me to be able to establish my enterprise, I cannot fly because I have 500,000, and out of this 500,000, the owner of a shop is asking for 500,000. Secondly, so the government has to look at that aspect. The second part of the government around entrepreneurship is tax. Are we able as young people to get a tax holiday, or for some extent for 5 years or so, so that now we are able to pick up? And we're not saying it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific period, but it could be based on the growth of an enterprise, that once I'm able to then hit this turnover, I can now get into a category of taxes. And the last thing around the entrepreneurship and creating of this, the government created an enabling environment, particularly on access to finance, which is one of the biggest problem, through the Youth Development Fund. The thing is, we want to see reforms around Youth Development Fund, particularly on how they get opportunities for young people, on how they incentivize young people to get these finances from Youth Development Fund. We have seen previously, and even up to now, around 90% of loans being issued by Youth Development Fund is issued through a group. So you can imagine you have to go there as a group, and the first round you qualify for 50,000. Once you pay 50,000, you then qualify for 100,000. Again, you repay the 100,000, you to qualify for 150,000. By the time you hit 500,000 or 1 million, you will have done a repayment for over 5 years for you to qualify for 1 million. I have an idea, for instance, as an individual, must I be forced to get into a group with Mr. Abok here for me to be able to benefit? So that has led to so many young people actually compromising on the IP. We are seeing intellectual property being compromised by young people, therefore, because they cannot finance their enterprise. They have to invite others to share into their IP, and so that now you're able to finance your enterprise. So I will say that the government has a role to play in creating an enabling environment that can allow young people to access quality education, that can allow young people to start a business and grow that business, that can allow young people to participate in public policy, in creating and advocating for change that is addressing the issues of young people and citizens at large.
Okay, thank you for that substantive contribution. I just want to share one clip. You comment on it, and then I will give a Bok chance either to comment or ask questions what he has gathered from the first part of that interview. Yeah, just shortly. And this will in line with another question that I will read online from the comments. Then you can answer both of them at the same time.
Right now, is it political freedom? No. It is economic. So whenever you go somewhere and you start negotiating, and I tell youth, negotiate from economic empowerment perspective.
The assumption, as my good friend Susan says, that everybody will be a business person when you give them 50,000, that is complete nonsense. And the people who are telling you that, no, it is nonsense. And we should call them out. And what people do, out of 10 young people, you give them that 50,000, only 2 will possibly have a testimony. Only 2. Then you create all these funds, Uwezo Youth, and each one of them is run by bureaucracies. The cost of running the bureaucracies is sometimes more than the money that is available for distribution to young people.
Eric, I can't hear you. I don't know if you are on mute or...
Sorry, I was on mute. There are quite a number of issues that have emerged in that clip, but one of the key questions was generation of mission. Do youth really understand the urgency of their mission? Why at this time? Why they exist? And he went ahead and asked us issues. Okay, there are those who are pursuing political freedom, but in his view, he thinks the youths need more of economic freedom. What do you think?
I wanted to...
As you answer that, there is a comment from Wema Zuri anasema the young people allow themselves to be used by political class as campaign tools. Yeah, so comment on those issues, then I'll give Abok a chance to also make a comment.
Thank you, Eric. One, for me, I wanted to really, was hoping to hear what that economic freedom really entails. Economic freedom, as Patrick has brought out from that clip, there are a number of issues, and when we're talking about young people, Eric, we are talking about mainly 3 things that young people want to. We're talking about economic empowerment. We are talking about political and political participation and maybe our role in policy making. We're talking about young people, and that of course speaks broadly as young people voice, our voice as young people. And the third thing is young people and education. Perhaps, unless there's something that I have left out. But if, for me as a young person, I will look at it, and my friends are with who are and peers are within that sphere. So either you are pursuing economic freedom, how you are pursuing that is either you are doing, you are employed, you are self-employed. Number two, you are maybe a politician. You've then decided to go the politics way of influencing policies. That again is young people and that area of policy. And then there is young people. There is young people and education opportunities. If you are a young person, you are divided among, you are pursuing either of these three, or you are in one. So you are in either in one, you are pursuing the other. All of us, in most cases, we are looking at pursuing for that economic freedom, number one, and which is being self-employed or being employed. That's how you pursue that economic freedom, mainly as a young person. And the second thing, you are looking at advocating for change. And nowadays, young people we appreciate their times have changed. And we've seen change that has been created by our those who went ahead of us. We've seen change that was created, for example, in this country through street activism, which is still to some extent effective to date. However, as young people, again, we are seeing young people advocating for change, which is currently happening, Eric. Young people are advocating for change mainly through processes and systems, either through the court. Young people are advocating for change through the court. We saw recently, even through the BBI, we saw a voice of young people in the entire judicial process. We saw young people as lawyers participating in that and contributing. So young people, we are slightly seeing some sort of different approach towards change, which is not necessarily the change that we used to see previously of people going to the street and demonstrating. We are seeing young people right now advocating for change through different platforms. Young people advocating for change through digital platforms, through hashtags. We are seeing young people advocating for change through the courts. And I think we in this country, we have a very good example of people who have brought change mainly through processes. We can talk about Okia Omutata in this country. We may not see Okia Omutata on the street, but Okia Omutata is one of the change makers in this country who have successfully used systems and processes to bring about change. So young people, we do not necessarily have to go to a street for us to be to bring that change and advocate for the change that we need. No, young people right now are creating change in different ways. So I will, to answer to what Patrick, as Dr. our very respected doc, has said, Prof has said, it is important that much as we pursue the economic freedom, it is important for us to understand the key pillars towards this economic freedom. What are the key pillars? That then, what are the enablers of the economic freedom? These enablers is what we are looking at. And for me, mainly, the enablers are employment, which is either self or being created or being employed. That is number one. The second pillar, it is education, because we believe with education I will be able to be employed, or with the education that I have, I can gain a skill that will be really important for me to be able to open my own enterprise. And the third thing that we are talking about when it comes to the some of these issues is then advocating for change, which is mainly advocating for creating an enabling environment that is favoring, is a bit, that favors me as a young person, for me to be able to either thrive, for me to be able to feel safe, for me to be able to experience that economic freedom. So we cannot talk about economic freedom without touching on the key pillars that then are the enablers to this economic freedom, which is education, which is employment, and the other one, which is, if we have to advocate for that change, mainly it comes through our voice. And our voice nowadays will not come through street advocacy and what have you, but we have changed tact, and young people now have changed tact, and they are using systems and process to advocate for that change.
Okay, thank you for that. Viewers, keep making your comments. You can also ask questions. We will forward to our panelists. Welcome. Themba is also a resident panelist. He has just arrived. In US, it's daytime, so he was at work. I think it's lunchtime. Huh? Okay, so I'll give Bok chance either to ask questions or comment before we move to the next part. Also, if Themba has question or a comment, if he has been following. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Wekesa. It's good to see my friend Apollo dissecting issues concerning youth. And this kind of discussion I saw in him 16 years ago, when he used to sit at my back of the classroom. Those who were sleeping, so he was not really sleeping. Thank you so much. I may not have direct questions to him, because if I ask him a question, it would mean maybe he has like real solutions to all problems facing youth. But I believe this discussion is geared towards trying to look at issues that have bedeviled these people called youth. But the first question that we need to ask ourselves today is, why are we talking about youth? That should be the first question. What has made us to be where we are, so that we start talking about women and youth and the people living with disabilities and so forth and so forth? It means that the successive governments from 1963 even up to the year 2003 had general policies trying to address problems generally in the society. And they forgot the question, or the big question, which is, we have a population which is growing, which has large number of young people, yet they failed to expand the sectors of the industry that can really absorb these people. And therefore it reached a point whereby we have so many people who are looking for jobs, and now there are no jobs. So we come back and start looking for affirmative action funds, youth fund, women fund, Wekesa fund, etc., etc. So the question should be, how can these people who are called young participate in policy making to make sure that moving forward, no one is going to create a specific fund trying to address a specific problem in a certain sector of the economy. if this is looked at, then I believe in 20 or 30 years to come, we may not be talking about a specific category of people in the society, because as it is now, anybody who is above 35 years of age is out of the radar of the government in terms of affirmative action, so affirmative funds. So after 35 years, as a man, like I know my friend Wekesa cannot be assisted by the government whatsoever. So if you were never assisted by the government when you were young, now you are on your own. I think these are the policies that we are talking about should be across the board. But I've heard those two young ladies talking about or young people do we have a table to air out our views or our issues? You know, as it is now, there is a confusion that everyone is a youth. I was watching someone today, a guy called Domingo Magara, who is 61 years old, and he was there saying, yeye kama kijana. But now this umbrella word called youth, where does it start and where does it end? According to government policies, who is a youth? According to age, who is a youth? And do we categorize these people as those people who are jobless, or who is this person whom we are trying to address? Because you will realize that after you've been used by the politicians to make sure that they get to power, then they will appoint one confused person who supported them in the name of the youth and try to say, we have incorporated young people in our government. Yet the policies they are going to operate on are not pro-youth. The policies they are going to implement are not pro-youth. So this person will only come out to say, will only come out to be a failure in the eyes of the youth, because he agreed to work under policies that are not pro-people that he is seen to be representing in the government. So you'll realize year in, year out, we try to talk about people who are young in terms of age, but operating in old age government policies that are not pro-youth. So the question or the energy should be on the policies and governance issues that are pro-youth. Pro-youth. The policies should be, according to me, should be around the following areas. For example, when you talk about subsidy in education sector, you are trying to address the disparity that exists in terms of people getting chances or people getting spaces to further or even to study. Right now we have HELB, which again started not few years, but so many years back. But look at it. After you've gotten out of school, the government does not know whether you have a job or not. They start charging you 5%, is it 5%? Yes, 4% per month, until you'll get that job so that you start paying. What about in a case whereby you don't get a job? So that is a burden which is heavily on you. It should have been an end to end. In other words, we are giving you this loan, but at the end of the day, there is a job opportunity that you'll be likely to get into so that you start paying off this thing. The other one is investment on, for example, manufacturing sectors that will expand or create job opportunities to absorb the young people. And the next one should be when you talk about the emerging trends or emerging issues in the world today. We talk about technology. What are the government policies talking about technology? Because most young people, by either by default or by choice, you'll find them being found in this sector. Even today, we are having this show on this platform. So what does the future say about technological advancement, and what is the government policy saying on this issue? When you look at all that, in one way or the other, this young person will have been taken care of somehow. But above all, because we have resources which are diminishing and we have population which is increasing, then it means the government should create an enabling environment, just like my friend has said, enabling environment for entrepreneurs to carry out their entrepreneurial activities without a lot of constraints. I'll connect this with what Dr. Patrick Lumumba said and what Apollo said sometimes when he was starting, that you are given 50,000, but in that 50,000, you remember there is the other fees which professors talked of: bureaucracy cost, administration fee, I don't know which fee. At the end of the day, this government will give you from right hand and pick almost half of that money from the left hand. So you'll realize from licenses, from all that, you end up having a debt with the government, yet this money did not even help you. I remember there's a time we took this loan, and within the first 2 months, everyone had fled to different town to look for job to repay for this amount which was being which we were being given. Yeah, so you repay with other monies from other sources as opposed to the business itself. So the policies here should be pro entrepreneurial activities that can be pursued by young people. I would say that in most developing countries, no, wacha tu nimalize. In most developing countries,
I wanted to say,
yes, yes.
Finish in 1 minute. We give Themba an opportunity. He's going back to work. He was just on a lunch break, and then we will come back to you. Okay.
Okay. I will donate that 1 minute to Themba, but let me just say that this issue of entrepreneurship is not it's a new concept even to the government, and therefore even the policies, they don't even have policies to encourage entrepreneurship. It is just a word or is a topic taught in school, but in real in terms of real policies to address this, no, we are still very far. Look at the taxation regime that we have. Look at other county government charges that we have. They are not pro entrepreneurship at all. Maybe Themba can talk, then I finish up. I also want to go to sleep.
Okay, Themba.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Wekesa. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Apollo, that was very good thoughts from you, and really like I've been listening to you, and I'll listen to your appreciation of the fact that youth is a force to reckon with, and if not well invested in, then it's a danger. You know, I want to probably, together with the questions that have been posted, to hear your view on how best the youth themselves can make use of their strengths, both in numbers and also in terms of individual resources. Because if for as long as you keep waiting for other people to create the enabling environment, you're probably still going to have the same cry, even for the next generation of the youths. So I would want to hear your wisdom in terms of that. Then maybe you can also comment in, at the moment, what are the current existing opportunities where youths can express their initiatives, they can express their resources, you know, to add value. And finally, there's the adage that says that power is not given, it's taken. You have repeatedly said that the government, the people, when is this that the youths are going to create their position on the table? How can they do that? Thank you.
Can I also ask my question so that my good friend
Yeah, you
can
can ask.
address all of them?
Yeah, you can ask.
Okay. I spoke a lot before I could go to my questions. Then Apollo, now that you have a relatively rich experience in working with young people, and especially on the social is it social okay the empowerment bit of it socially, and I know you also have interest in agribusiness. What are some of the entrepreneurial opportunities that young people can involve themselves in without looking at the government to provide for finances, to provide for a level playing ground out of your experience? Then number two, what can young people do at the moment to actually make themselves be felt in both political and economic environment moving forward? Because we only cry government, government. We should. But what are some of the practical things that can be done by young people to make sure they are felt? Then lastly, would you just define who is a youth? Because even Wekesa is a youth, Ruto is a youth. Yeah. In my own eyes, I'm also a youth. Themba is also a youth. Yeah.
Okay. Before you answer that, I only also had a question related to that, based on this comment that delegated power is not powerful enough. It is not even power. Delegated power is not powerful enough. It's not even power. It means that young people waiting for affirmative action to give them opportunity may not empower them fully. Comment on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Themba. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, my friend Bernard. Yes, I'll start perhaps with one of the questions around who is a youth. The UN, we will stick with some official definition of youth, which in many countries it's allowed to call anybody between the age of 15 to 35 to be youth. So this is especially in Sub-Saharan Africa, we recognize that there are countries, for instance, could be our neighbors, who can actually get some. Once you hit the age of 15 or 16, you can actually get married. So in SSA, we are talking of youth category being between the age of 15 to 35. So for those of you who are in this panel and have and fall outside that category, please, I would like you to drop the name youth tagline from your lips, and please find another group that you belong to, and try also and form an affirmative action. I can see there's women, so perhaps men and vulnerable men can now go and also ask for the put together affirmative action. But yeah, just for the sake of that, youth is between the age of 15 and 35. A number of issues, questions that have been asked around how can youth make strength, and perhaps before I could answer to that, Eric, if you could just allow me to highlight a number of issues around young people, and particularly around education and training and labor market in Kenya. So these are stats that it is important people argue from the statistics point of view, which can really help to understand where we currently stand country as far as young people is concerned, particularly around education, training, and labor market. One, it's important to note that over 1 million youth here in Kenya, over 1 million youth enter into the labor market annually without skills, either as dropouts or non-starters. There are people who have not gone to school, and others have dropped from school for reasons best known to them. That number is over 1 million, slightly over 1 million, around 1.3 million young people enter into the labor market. Not born, they enter into the labor market every year. In addition, around 150 to 200,000 young people are released into the labor market annually after completing universities and colleges. Eric, are you noting that? I mean, this is the most worrying problem, because we already have 1 million, around 1.3 million young people who are, this is unskilled labor without any skill entering into the labor market. In addition to that, we have close to 200,000, it's estimated between 155 to 200,000, 155,000 to 200,000 young people being released into the labor market annually after completing training in either universities or colleges. So we are then talking of around close to 1.8 million, approximately 1.8 million young people are added into the Kenya labor market annually, 1.8. Now, this is now the most interesting thing, is that only an average of 500,000, an average of 500,000 jobs are created annually in Kenya. 500,000 jobs created annually against a labor market that is already saturated by every year with an addition of 1.8 million young people, between 1.5 to 1.8 million young people being added into the labor market. This, according to statistics, 18% of these 500,000 jobs is being generated through formal sector, and just around 82%, is contributed mainly by the informal sector. What that means is that to satisfy current Kenya labor market, a total of 1.8 million jobs must be created annually. And we're talking about 67% of Kenyans unemployed today. If you look at the unemployment rate and percentage right now in the country, about 67% of them are young people. Therefore, this makes unemployment and underemployment to be the biggest challenge facing Kenya today. And that's why I started by saying, if the country does not take advantage of this demographic dividend, then it can be a problem, because already we are seeing that about 67% of the unemployed in this country are young people. And therefore, that has already posed and answers the question as to why the government has to prioritize youth, not because of any other thing, not because youth are so special, but because this is a group that is at its peak. And if you do not take care of that group, which is around 1.8 million every year being added into the labor market, if you do not take care of them, you then run a risk. You run a risk of then really facing a wrath from this very energetic demographic in this country. So just to looking at all that, Kenya as it is of course a dual economy, including sorry guys, sorry, my apologies for that. Just allow me to switch it off. Sorry for that. So I was saying Kenya is characterized by the dynamics in by a dual economy, including both a large and growing informal sector. Oh, sorry guys. It looks like people are looking at me and watching and following the whole conversation. But yeah, so I was saying that Kenya is really being characterized by a dual economy, including a large and growing informal sector and a relatively small formal, very small, and you could see is around 18% of formal and modern job sector. Of course, then you can see a mismatch between education, training, and labor market. All that touches on young people. So if I could therefore look at what Bernard asked, I do not. So that tells you I've answered your question. Why you think why Kenya why youth, where this focus therefore to young people, particularly through affirmative action, and why the government has to focus particularly on young people. And two, I also believe that this affirmative action, particularly around the policy, it has to state very clearly on how young people are being supported, mainly through the education, the labor market, through employment, particularly whether it's what we can call the entrepreneurship. As we can clearly say, we are all young people cannot be entrepreneurs. So others have to go through employment and formal employment. Others have to create employment for their peers. So that is really important that those areas, those issues are captured in the youth policy that is really being created and every time being updated. But my biggest problem right now is that, and I will disagree with my friend Bernard, we do not, time has come for us not to ask the government to invest in these and create, particularly around the manufacturing. I heard you talk about manufacturing and also in agribusiness. I do not think that investing in these industries, it has to take a different shape altogether if they have to invest in this sector. The government should be an enabler without necessarily being us seeing the government. We have seen even recently with the introduction of the county governments. We have seen county government going ahead to create what you will call in other counties, governors creating and starting to establish industries. The government should not be establishing industries. The government should be creating an environment where investors, private investors, come in and invest in those specific counties, thereby creating jobs for those young people. The government, therefore, has to be really has to guide, has to provide policies, has to then also make it very clear that in all the people, if you are employing this number of people, make sure that young people, this percentage of young people are employed in your company. And we want to see audits being done in these organizations, in these companies that are being opened, particularly in relation to how many young people have been employed. I agree that, of course, the majority of young people being released into the job market are unskilled labor sometimes, and we could see them doing kazi ya mkono. It's okay, but we refused as young people to be branded. Every time, it makes me so sad every time I see an advert targeting young people. I see young people carrying wheelbarrows. That if you see an advert around young person, it's young people, it's a young person akiwa kwa street and anafagia street. We are seeing young people, if they want to talk about young people and skills, we are seeing young people holding those welding machines. And we are saying young people are not about, it's not all about welding, it's a skill, yes. But you are trying to then really saying that those who have gone through formal education have acquired, have got their engineers, their other professionals, you cannot therefore use a symbol of young people holding a welding machine to be representing young people. So much as, of course, the unskilled labor is the one that's being released to the market every year, the majority of them, we are saying that the government, through the policy, has to make it very clear that industries, as they open, a certain percentage of industries, a certain percentage of jobs have to be reserved for young people, because it's a problem if they don't make it intentional in addressing that, they cannot necessarily address all those issues. And looking at the next thing, the next question into looking at the existing opportunities which young people can go for. Yes, based on right now we are saying really digital and everything digital really going. Young people have to take advantage of the digital space, whether it is in creating jobs, number one, or two, even in creating the change that we're talking about. Young people then have to take advantage of the technology to be able to advocate for change, to be able to go for jobs that are a bit technology wise. This also goes hand in hand with a lot of things. I know if the government people listening, we young people, we need again about the enabling environment. We need to talk about the cost of internet. We need to talk about the cost of internet, the cost of any other thing, particularly those that young people are able to access. It doesn't have to be that cost being very affordable. It could be around the government creating some spaces within villages or counties where young people can go, social halls where young people can go, and they gain digital skills, and of course through Ajira. I think a lot is being done under the Ministry of ICT. How can youth create positive? How can youth create positions at the table? Yes, it can be organized or individuals being able to then advocate. But creating this position at the table means either it's through policy. If it's through politics, then it has to be through political parties. But we have also seen young people going as independent candidates. So young people can create position at the table by going as independent candidates. And we know, of course, that in financing campaigns, if you're going for political seat, one of the biggest challenge, reports indicate, biggest challenge that young people face is financing their campaigns. So I will say, if young people believe that they need their own young people to represent them, then young people have to come and support one of their own. And this support involves both voting for them and secondly, financing their campaigns. We have seen this in developed countries where voters go ahead to actually finance, and they go and mobilize resources and finance for their candidates. So it is possible, Eric, I believe, that young people, if I stand in and I go and vie as an independent candidate because I've not been given, I've been locked out of nomination. And we all know sometimes how nomination of political parties in this country can turn ugly. So if young people will be locked from that, young people still have an opportunity to go as independent candidates, and the fellow young people have to rally behind that young person, one, by giving the person the votes, and two, by actually contributing financially. I need to see today if Bernard, I said Bernard is not a young person anymore. If I decided that I want to vie for a political role, and if young people want to be represented by their fellow young people, to avoid what Bernard earlier said, a culture where the elderly politicians have always used young people by rewarding some cronies and rewarding their friends who sometimes do not really resonate with what young people want. To avoid all that culture, there is only one way. Young people go for independent party, stand under the independent party, let other young people then come, support you with their votes, give you their strategy, and give you money. Support. That is the only way young people can, I believe, young people can take it without necessarily going to fight people who have been in politics from since early 90s, and you want to be given, and you want to dislodge the guy in Bungoma County of Fort Kenya, and the guy who was the founder of Ford Kenya, and you want to go and tell him that now you know what, I want to be the senator, you sit aside. And the founder of the party also is interested in becoming a senator, and he has all the money and the tricks. So I totally believe that young people can play that role by we can invite them to the table. The next question was around what can young people do to make sure that they are felt. I have said, if it is an political, because we're talking about mainly three areas. Through voice, we're talking of young people should be vocal. And this vocal, we're saying both in representation of a person and young people. It might not be really electing a young person, but young people must have a say on who then represents the majority from their constituencies, whether it's a ward or a constituency or a county or a national government. We must see the young people then taking an active role, first by being voters, registering in large numbers. Two, by going deliberately vying for those roles, they will be felt vying for the available roles. Number three, we need to see young people playing an active role in governance and accountability by questioning budgets. Bernard, may I ask you, when was the last time you checked? When was the last time you checked? You participated in budget making of Homa Bay County? Because I understand you're from Homa Bay County. Have you ever participated in contributing into Homa Bay County budget? Probably the answer from Bernard is perhaps the guy has never participated in budget making. And county governments continue to advertise and publish and they make public this information around people participating in fora to contribute. Either they want to make a policy. Today they want to make a policy around garbage collection or revenue collection in the county. Young people do not go there because sometimes as young people are the problem. We want to be paid to attend a public fora that is supposed to discuss matters to do with young people. I would say time has come for us to then take an active role in participating in those forums where policies are discussed, and even the budget. When the counties are discussing budgets and allocation of budgets, we are seeing when Bernard was still a young person, he was here in Nairobi and comfortably following the politics to do with Obama in the US and being encouraged with Obama's messages, but he did not go and participate in saying, I would like budget allocated to this department. I would like this budget allocated. But sorry, but I'm just using you as an example to represent young people who are sitting comfortably in towns and following Netflix, football, and other inspirational content through their media. So it is possible young people they will be felt if they participate like that. And of course, young people will be felt through how we participate. We have seen Omanyala. Omanyala? Omanyala has really performed very, very well when it comes to athletics in this country. And we're seeing, so we are really happy that young people are taking, and we're talking about young people across all the spheres. So young people can go for it. It doesn't matter where you come from. I come from a very small village. It's a small village. I know it's a town now. It has become a town, though it is a town within a village. But I in that village, I didn't even know that one day I will be where I am today. So it's all about the belief that we can actually go for it as young people. Because of time, allow me to then just look at the entrepreneurship areas that Bernard was talking about. What are some of the entrepreneurial opportunities that young people can venture themselves in without necessarily having to look at finance from the government or regardless, or is it regardless of the environment, enabling environment. Yes, I will say right now is to look at opportunities and sectors that have the potential to be here even in days to come. You know, in the next 10 years or so. There are industries like the auto. I know motorbikes have become a menace. Sometimes we find solutions from the challenges that we face. Motorbikes have become a menace. So there are opportunities around really being able to provide a service around the auto industry, particularly motorbikes. Much as we don't like them, motorbikes are here to stay. So if we don't like what sometimes the borders are doing, we have an opportunity as young people to create a solution that will clean the sector and what have you. So that could be around courier services, offering of courier services, even the border services themselves, around service, around the motorbikes, providing service to the motorbikes. So the auto industry is one of the biggest, and the second is on agriculture. We are ever growing. And every day our growth rate right now, I think, stands at around 5 point. I mean, I know official figures around 4 point something, but I know we are around 8 point something percent. We have to really, people have to eat. So agriculture is one of the. Personally, I am a farmer, so I believe that there are so many people to be fed. In fact, we cannot produce. We can't produce. And Eric, one day I would like you to bring experts here. I'm not an expert, but people will talk about food security and development, particularly how the population right now is affecting our land, and why we should stop subdividing land, because we cannot put development ahead of food security. Those things have to be and conservation. So those things have to be looked at sustainably, and I think there are opportunities around agribusiness, around agriculture, around environment, and conservation, because these are things that are going to be required in the next few years. And of course, in other sectors, in ICT is one of the other things that we will really be required across board. But even as we do that, allow me to say that as young people, we need, there's something called, there are skills, soft skills that we really need, which among them include analytical skills, and I mean, presentation skills, communication skills. These are skills right now, and one day perhaps, Eric, you should host young people here who are fresh graduates. There are young people today who are not able to articulate issues, who are not able to present themselves in interviews. And when all this happens, you cannot, even grooming is a problem. You can't present yourself, you can't speak, you can't. These soft skills that we need young people to have are somehow locking out young people from opportunities. You go, you have a point, but you can't present it, you can't articulate it. You know, I had another young person who came to an interview that one day I was a panel that I was sitting, and they couldn't even talk about themselves, particularly in relation to a role that they have that was advertised. You have forgotten when what is happening. We are applying for jobs. We have forgotten the job profile or the job description whatsoever. By the time we are going to these interviews, you are asked something and you do not even, you are asked, can you please tell us about yourself in relation to the role profile of this job. You have forgotten the role profile. You don't even know what they were looking for. So you end up telling us all about yourself. You know, I'm a farmer. I am from, you know, I used to participate in the drama in high school. I used to be the DH captain. Those are, and yet you've been asked, can you tell us about yourself in relation to the role profile? So I think the soft skills young people have to invest, and some of these soft skills are available without necessarily being somebody investing in them. And right now we are spending a lot of time on online. mostly on social media. We should be spending time even on YouTube to look at presentation skills, communication skills, analytical skills. People are not able to even analyze a very simple statement. We should be able to really address such things because they make us competitive in the job market. I think with that, Eric, if you can allow me, others, of course, I know there's so many questions and I was not able to address all of them. If time allows,
I can do the last part of it.
Yes. If time allows, definitely. If time allows, I will again be happy if you can invite me with Dr. Lumumba in this panel and other inspirational speakers in this country who have made a very big contribution into this economy. We can sit here and discuss about other matters that, of course, I've been able to talk about it. I know, of course, you asked something about delegated power and power not in the people. I wasn't really able to, and another question, around 3 questions I've not been able to answer. But of time, I would like to respect our audience that I know it not be possible for them to be tuned in for all that while. So with that, I would like to turn this mic back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think you have captured, there are a few questions that I was to ask you, but in the process of answering that, you have captured much of the questions. I want to play 1 or 2 clips, and then we will be summarizing the last part of our interview. Okay.
Hi, my name is Dr. Emily Okuto. I'm the chairperson, Department of Governance, Peace and Security, the School of Humanity. I'd like to talk to you about a very serious topic called radicalization. I want to shed some light on the issue of youth radicalization. Radicalization is real in Kenya. It is affecting everybody. It is affecting youth in high schools and in the universities, and that's why I need to talk about it. So, what is radicalization? Radicalization is a very personal process. It is an individual, personal process where an individual adopts some extremist beliefs and attitudes. These beliefs are political, they are social, and they are ideologically based. The beliefs will shape an individual's view of things and perspectives. But the problem with that radicalization is that the most extremist form of radicalization is actually the culmination of the. Now, in Kenya, we have experienced a lot of terrorist attacks. In 1998, there was the bombing of the American embassy. And more recently, there was an
being petty, very, very petty. To know, first of all, that I knew that video was being taken, and that's why I was speaking. So I did not do anything in hiding. And I will repeat, even as I stand here in Garissa University, where disaster was brought here by Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab were young people. Radicalization is a problem in this country. We cannot run away from the fact, and I, as a minister, will not run away from my responsibility. The only way we will stop radicalization is to talk to the youth who have been radicalized, who are once radicalized, to tell them that there's another way of life. The security minister, Matiang'i, is on top of his work. We do not dare say he do his work. Matiang'i will take care of terrorists in this country, I can tell you, and he has already done so. Matiang'i will eliminate Mungiki. I think that has almost come to pass. Matiang'i will eliminate Sungu. I think that has also come to pass. But for Matiang'i to succeed, we must not allow another generation of young people to be radicalized. And that is why I will speak to any young people who want another way of life away from radicalization. And I will not apologize for it, because that is the work of the Ministry of Youth.
Okay. It seems an issue to do with radicalization is a serious issue globally. And it's generating different clandestine groups that youth seem to find solace as a form of engagements. But these build up into criminals. So I don't know, maybe you can weigh in on issues to do with radicalization. Why radicalization? What are the causes of radicalization? Why do youth find themselves vulnerable to these kind of groups?
Opportunities. It is lack of opportunities. So it is opportunities or lack thereof of these opportunities, and lack of opportunities creates what you call desperation. The desperation for you to really be able to make ends meet, for you to put food on the table, for you to be able to afford your life. When you do not have opportunities for you to get money to finance your things, you become desperate. Eric, if you are hungry, you have not eaten for 1 week, you've not eaten for 1 month, and you do not see the hope of you getting food anytime soon, and you are in the, there's no hope for you to get food, and I come in there and I tell you, I want you, I'm going to give you food, because I know food is what matters to you. But for you to have this food and have this food for as many days as you want, I will do this on one condition. You have to sing my anthem. You have to do things my way. There is a high chance that you will trade your hunger for anything else. We have seen people, and even today, the deaths, the murders that we are seeing, and what we are, it's because people kill for something. People kill for somebody. And therefore, if you do not give me opportunity, and back to where we started, that if you do not give young people opportunities, you run a risk of somebody else giving them an opportunity. If somebody else gives them an opportunity, whether that opportunity comes with conditions, young people are likely to go for that opportunity, regardless of its condition. So the first step, and I will say this, you cannot, to stop to and talk about radicalization today, we have to start addressing this from the opportunity point of view. Nothing else matters. And I will say, and this is, studies have shown, it has always been exploiting people who have no hope. You come and give them hope, and if I give you hope, I trade this hope with something else. And therefore, if I have to sing your tune, I am willing to sing your tune, so long as my family is eating, so long as my family has food on their table, I will do anything for you. That is what is causing radicalization, And to address that, we all know where we have to start from, by creating opportunities, alternative opportunities. If we do not create alternative opportunities, we have an issue. I'll give an example. For instance, a very good positive example. Where I come from, one of the organization came, and it was an organization that was advocating for conservation and environmental conservation. And they were discouraging the growth of, they were talking about the growth of discouraging farmers from growing a certain crop, because its continuous growth was actually affecting or causing farmers to go and cut down on indigenous trees. And farmers were told, you know what, can you stop this? And farmers were told of the danger of them bringing down trees and clearing forests. They know the danger. But the funny thing is, they stopped for a while, for a few months, when there was no alternative for them in terms of a cash crop. And that is the only cash crop. Farmers have ended up continuously growing that crop, much as it poses danger in environment, including clearing of forests and rivers drying up and wetlands being really destroyed. Farmers have refused to see that danger, but they are hearkening to the immediate need in their life, which is putting food in their table and looking for that cash crop, getting money. And they have ended up, right now, they have ended up destroying the environment. They are continuing to grow the crop until that day when, and they say, until that day when we get an alternative to this cash crop, we will continue doing what we do. That is what the same principle applying to young people and radicalization.
Okay, thank you. Abok, are you around to make any comment on radicalization? Okay. So what we are going to do is to finish with this part.
Yeah. Hi, Eric. Okay.
On my kicker tonight, I don't have very nice things to say about most, if not all, of those among our elected leaders that consider themselves young. Whether they are members of the National Assembly or senators, and whether they are allied to the Tangatanga or Kieleweke wings of Jubilee, or the opposition NASA coalition, or whatever is left of it, most, if not all, of our young elected leaders constitute a generational disaster. My argument is simple. Unlike any other generation of leaders in our history, the bulk of the current crop of young elected leaders stand for nothing specific when it comes to greater ideals of leadership and the making of nations. The current state of affairs in political parties, including the ongoing Jubilee leadership purge, have exposed our young elected leaders for what they truly are, an inconsequential and dispensable support cast. Instead of greater causes and principles, the lives of this crop of young leaders revolves around three names: Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto. Take away these three names, and our young elected leaders in both houses of parliament would be totally at a loss. And that is because most of them stand for someone instead of something. I call this a generational disaster because Kenya has seen and known better elected young leaders who stood for country and greater ideals. Mwai Kibaki and Tom Mboya were industrious cabinet ministers in their early 30s, and both shaped the destiny of Kenya after independence in their respective fields. Mwai Kibaki in economics and Tom Mboya in politics. I call the current young parliamentarians a generational disaster because they are no match to the 7 bearded sisters of the parliament of the late 70s, a small group of radical members of parliament that kept the authoritarian KANU executive on check and parliament accountable. The youthful MPs were mostly elected for the first time in 1979, and they included James Orengo, Koigi wa Mwere, Mwachegu wa Machofi, Chibule wa Suma, Wasike Ndombi, and Lawrence Sifuna. Of note again, some of the 7 bearded sisters were younger than some of the current young elected leaders, and they stood for something. They didn't stand for someone. Then came the young Turks of the late 80s and the 90s. These young leaders were brought together not by individuals, but by great causes, political reforms, and specifically the quest for a multi-party system of government. Even though there were many political giants around them, like Masinde Muliro, Kenneth Matiba, and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, it is their commitment to the great cause and not individuals that made the young Turks stand out. It is these individuals that proceeded to give Kenya a vibrant parliament between 1992 and 1997, with the likes of James Orengo, Paul Muite, Anyang' Nyong'o, Mohisa Kitui, Martha Karua, Rashid Mzee, and Farah Maalim, among others, looking all the part, worthy alternatives to the KANU government. First forward and draw comparisons, if any, today. When our alternative leaders, the young elected politicians, are not shooting people in pubs like wild hunters, they're invoking God's name and exhausting the entire text of the Holy Scriptures in zealous devotion to narrow causes. When they are not lining up for government contracts, they are lining up for handouts ahead of weekends of running political errands. Short-term goals is the bane of some of these present-day elected young leaders. They see politics not as an opportunity to serve, but a self-serving avenue to unaccounted wealth and unchecked power. Some of them, as a result, would not pass a random lifestyle audit tonight. Some of them, by their sheer appetite, quite frankly, represent a gluttonous future that should be avoided by Kenyans. Which is why I hold that there should be no tears for any young politician that will be stripped off their position in the ongoing leadership purge in Parliament. When they stand for nothing, then they can't stand in the way, not least of all that of their benefactors. What was given but not earned can be taken away. Without a cause, without ideals, it is not enough to be young. That is my kicker.
Okay, I'll begin by the last statement. It's not enough to be young. We have had different generations of young leaders who displayed different potential in terms of leadership. So why do you think in our own generation we call young people a generational disaster? What are we missing? There were the young Turks, yes, there are those youths even who fought for the independence. Among the Mau Mau, there were not only Wases, there were also youthful team. Then there was the youthful team in the first liberation, second liberation. But right now, the majority of the youthful leaders we have, their focus is different. What could be happening?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Kai just spoke my mind out. What is lacking in the current generation is vision. Vision. We don't have a vision for ourselves and for the community that we represent. And as I started earlier by saying, over the past 20 or so years, we've seen young people becoming worshipping politicians, and in particular in this country, those who worship these politicians, those who are ready to kill for these politicians and defend them through thick and thin, are the ones that are being rewarded, and they are being rewarded through nominations. They are being rewarded through getting party tickets to represent a constituency, to represent a ward. And so the biggest problem that we have with the current crop of young people, in my opinion, is that we lack a vision, and therefore our drive is not a vision for the people. Our drive is individual drive, particularly which has come particularly because of our loyalty to the powers that be. And we are talking of you being loyal to a party leader, then you are rewarded as a young person. So and that's what I said earlier, Eric, that young people must be change makers, and mainly young people have to start change. They have to lead that change. If we have to really benefit meaningfully from this crop of this demographic dividend of young people, unless we play a role in leading change ourselves, then we will forever be worshipping others and we will forever be servants, because we will have to dance into somebody else's tune. Time has come for us to dictate, and time has come for us to come up with our own tune as young people, start our tune, dance to our own tune, and close when it's time to shut. We shut and we go home. That is what we lack. Until the time when we define the ideas and the ideals and the change that we stand for, until that time, everything that we do will forever remain to be worshipping our small gods, who are owners of the party, who are our financiers of our campaigns, because young people, apparently, we do not have the financial muscle to finance these campaigns. We do not have our own political parties as young people. So we end up begging for a tycoon to come and finance our campaign, and I give you condition as a tycoon, and you have to live with it. Young people becoming party, in terms of the parties right now, you have to sing the tune of the party. If you do not sing a party tune, then you're likely to be punked, because you do not really believe into the ideals of the party. I believe this change must be started by young people and led by young people. Once we do that, we are likely to then we are likely to see parties reaching out to young people and saying, hey, I think you are bright, a bright young person. Can you come through and vie through through our party? And you give them conditions. But the other way around of, okay, we are going to create opportunities. We have opportunities for young people, but we want young people who are beautiful. We want young people who can kill for us. We want young people who can sleep with us for us to get these opportunities. That is where the problem is. So we have to address the challenge right now with young people is because we do not know what we want. And even when we're talking about representation, it's quite unfortunate. And Linus is very, very right that the current crop of leaders, particularly young people, we are regretting why we even, and it's a shame that when people start saying, okay, now look at the young person that we elected, we will not again elect young person because they do not understand why they went there in the first place. So I think if at all young people have to be elected into parliament or whichever, whether it's county or national, then we have to vet what is the reason behind their candidacy for us to really support them, because unfortunately most of them have a totally different agenda, and their motive is not to represent people. Their motive is actually to sing and be loyalist of other people, the owners of the tunes, So I will totally say that is the young people. I will totally say that young people is a disaster as it is currently, because we are worshipping our party leaders. We are, and for that reason, you either toe the line, you either sleep with me, you toe the line, you do this, or else I will deny you this nomination. I will orchestrate your demotion, and I don't need to mention, we've witnessed this in this country, where people who either are not loyal to the party or people who are not loyal to the financial of your campaign their downfall is orchestrated, and they come down so fast. So it has to start with us young people, either starting our own political parties, or as young people then start going with independence. But our motive has to be the change that has to happen, a change that we know is for the public good.
Thank you. You will prepare your parting shots. I want to give Abok also to give his final remarks on the topic. Then you prepare your parting shots, even as we bring to an end this discussion. Thank you. Abok, you'll go first.
Okay. Thank you, Wekesa. I think I left the show at some point in time due to interruptions on my network. Some calls were coming in. But I left it at where Apollo was trying to address the issue of radicalization. And I would just say this simple sentence that you are being radicalized when the offer is too good compared to what you already having on your table. So you are highly likely to be swayed to accept those offers. Even old people are getting radicalized in one way or the other. But it's only rampant in youth because, number one, they are jobless. Number two, they are still full of energy, and therefore they can offer mobility in terms of their labor from one region to the other, from one occupation to the other. And that's why it's very, very rampant. And unless the government through different fora address this issue, it is likely to continue. The other thing that I would want to say is in politics, there is no voting constituency called youth. And that this is why it will be very, very difficult, even for young people to have their own political party and agree to address, to front one candidate that is going to be fronted as a youth candidate. Because first, our politics is tribal. So we will have to listen to our community leader or tribal leader first before we can go back and realize, oh yes, I am a youth. So what I'm trying to say is until we come together as Kenyans, not even as youth, to address this issue of where would be our young people go after they finish the school at whatever level. I'm trying to look at where my children will be. So by the fact that I've just crossed over to that state of being alone or independent, I have to start thinking of where my children will be. And therefore, this conversation is not just about the youth, but it's about all of us. We tried when we were still young. We are still young, and we are going to continue pushing for it because it's the future of our children, it's the future of our grandchildren, it's the future of our brothers and sisters that we have to come together to try to address in all fronts. Thirdly, I was looking at the manifesto of the current government when they were just coming to 2013, and their number one agenda regarding creation of employment was to try to expand the manufacturing industry by providing subsidy, tax holidays, and the likes. These are some of the policies that we need to continue pushing on and holding our governments accountable to deliver exactly what they offered. But as it looks currently, it's like we are having a government which conned the Kenyans. They delivered nothing. In other words, in a criminal legal process, it would mean that they obtained the leadership through false pretense, that they wanted to offer a particular thing, but they have offered something else altogether. And we just need to come together and look at what will be the future of our children, what will be the future of our grandchildren. And then we shall come together and look at this issue, not as youth, because there is nobody that will come out and stand and unite youth specifically on their own and let others run like the rich. And of course, when you talk of the mathematics of tribal groupings, it will be very, very hard. So we have to arise and take up the position of your position as a Kenyan. Where will your children be, your sisters be, your brothers be? You might have crossed over just like me, but my children are coming up. So it's our collective responsibility. So I just want to encourage such discussions on such platforms, that we can air out our views. We can actually push this agenda as a collective agenda for all Kenyans. It's the future of the country. Lastly, this is the season of politics, and we have been engaged in different political discussions all over. And the way people, or the way young people, even the way they think, the way they articulate their issues makes no different even from that 60-year-old or 70-year-old. The mentality is just the same. Is our people, is this person who is trying to project a very good picture compared to these other. But if you look at it deeply, I mean, we are just going round and round, just like in the Old Testament times. You talk of the cycle of kings. I mean, this one tries to look good at the moment, but immediately they get into power, they fall away, and it continues and continues and continues until towards the election they come up with something that looks better but they have just disguised the point. So this is the time we open up our eyes as Kenyans and look at who is offering the best policies that are pro-youth, the best policies that are pro-economic development and growth, the best policies that are offering, that are gearing towards offering good security, the best policies that we can look upon and say, yes, our country is going to develop based on the following pillars. Otherwise, it will just be the same thing. Today, it is the politics of wheelbarrow and Azimio la Umoja. Now, from there, we will either get into Azimio la Umoja ama wheelbarrow, and then we will come back to Kenyans, we start crying again. Just like we said, these are God-anointed leaders, and therefore we should never point fingers towards them. Look at what has happened. God has really punished Kenyans because of their choices. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a very good night.
Okay.
He has gone.
Yeah, Apollo.
Thank you. Thank you,
Make
Mr.
your parting shots.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard Abok, one of the elders sitting in this. Just to again make it very clear that Bernard, this is not your space. We as young people, but we invite you to be part of the young people. Do not
Apollo.
that one day you will come and say you are coming to be a young person.
Apollo, I'm young until I reach 59. So expect me in these spaces until I get 59. So don't ask me when you find me in forums of young people. I'm there on behalf of my daughter.
I see. Okay, Eric, allow me to then say this. Just to pick from what Bad has said, I will just touch on maybe 2 or 3 things. One, I will say that in this country, we do not, particularly when it comes to politics and governance and what that we want to call, we do not need to reinvent the wheel. All I will say is there's something in this country called Vision 2030. Those who are not familiar with Vision 2030 should actually familiarize themselves with this document. This document was crafted with what earlier on our friend Dr. PLO said, the economic freedom. This document, the Vision 2030, was actually crafted to achieve the economic freedom and other things that are critical to our well-being as Kenyans. I don't really know why every year, therefore, after this Vision 2030 document was crafted, I don't know why those who aspire to be in power always have to come up with manifestos. All we need is, we have a Vision 2030. Since it was crafted, we want to see one country CEO, every president coming in to contribute towards the achievement of Vision 2030. we should, I honestly think that there has to be an overhaul on how manifestos are written in this country. And if the country has set out a very clear agenda to lead us towards the economic freedom, then we have to put all our resources towards that strategy. And in Kenya, I think that strategy is one, which is Vision 2030. All other documents, therefore, strategic documents, which could form policies and what have you, whether it's for young people, women, people living with disability, and any other group, their policies have to align to this larger strategy we call Vision 2030. That, I believe, it will sort all these things that we are having. We are tired with policies. We have one of the best policies. Actually, it was termed that we have one of the best constitution, well-spelled constitution. But what we are, the reality, vitu kwa ground ni tofauti. And I think we totally need to then address that issue at that point, right now, looking at how do we then make these things work, rather than how do we create another layer of policies. And I've said, we already have Vision 2030 to look at our issues. Having said that, specifically to young people, here in Kenya, as I mentioned earlier, that youth is one of the government's major assets, where we have around 75% of the population being under the age of 35. And 29% of that are young people between the age of 15 and 35. This demographic, for sure, can contribute to immensely towards enhancing what we've talked here, and we really spent a lot of time talking about governance and accountability. However, despite their numerical strength, youth in Kenya are grossly underrepresented in political and other public spaces. Although they, of course, constitute about 46% of the registered voters in the country, youth occupy, and this is a very crazy stat, despite the fact that young people represent around 46% of the registered voters, youth occupy a decimal below 16%, around 15 to 16% of the elected and nominated leadership positions in Kenya. And they remain at the periphery of the country's affair. That is my biggest worry. 46% registered voters, and what percentage is representing us? 16%. And out of 16%, how many of them are sober? Perhaps less than 5%. I think something has to be done. Youth in Kenya have expressed frustration with what has traditionally been hierarchy from the hierarchical culture that elevate age and experience over education and knowledge. And I think there has to be a shift in this. We do not want to, of course, I know the role that experience plays, and I know the role that both age and experience, plays. However, it should not come at the expense of education and knowledge, which young people have. Young people have education, they have a skill. What they lack, perhaps, which is locking them out, is experience, which I think this really has to be addressed. And this because it has silenced young people's voices and their potential in decision making. It goes without saying that, of course, women and people living with disabilities among the youth demographic are even less valued in this country. So for Kenya to benefit from this current youth bulge, I believe that youth must be involved in governance, in accountability of public goods. That's the first thing. The next thing is that the government has to create an enabling environment for youth to participate in the public spaces, for youth to benefit from the education opportunities, for youth to be able to create employment for themselves and for their peers. Now, the biggest problem, of course, as we started saying, is that most youth in Kenya, they lack skills, they lack knowledge, they lack network and a platform to adequately engage either in the designing, in the planning, in the implementation, and monitoring of these public governance outcomes that affect not only them, but also their community at large. And therefore, I will really want to urge those who listen, those who are listening to us, be it young people, that despite all this, young people have a role to play in creating, in bringing about change that we want. And this change has to be informed by what we think we lack the most, the opportunities. So are we able to then create the opportunities for ourselves and for our peers? If the answer is yes, then can we have a young person who then can clearly articulate our issues? Can we front that young person to go ahead and represent us? And if, and I say if by chance, that elderly politicians and political leaders will represent our interests as young people, I will say then that young people must be able to really participate in this decision making, participate in making sure that they make it very clear to this aged or elderly politician to be able to address our issues. Of course, it goes without saying that also, given that this is we are going towards election, elections are a powerful tool that youth can use to make known their voices on issues that concern them, and equally, election serves as an opportunity to be part of the decision making on areas that we feel they affect us. So next year being 2022, and we know that election will be happening, and adequate participation of youth in the electoral process is therefore, and I will say adequate participation of youth in electoral process is very important. Very important means for us to be able to secure what we have called youth inclusion and our contribution in governance processes. But on the other hand, we are also looking at what we have called social accountability. And this is what we are doing today, is the social accountability. We are calling people accountable. And social accountability, we have seen this has really become, it has increasingly become an effective tool to either stimulate greater accountability and increased responsiveness from the policy actors and service providers to the needs, preferences, and demands of our service users. You know, as young people, I know, of course, Bernard is also there, but for us as service users, we say that as especially young people, social accountability is one thing that young people, we should hold on to to hold those ones that we have appointed or those ones that we sent to represent our interests, to call them into to be accountable for that. So matters, of course, the both elections and social accountability are constitutionally guaranteed tools that youth can use to increase our participation, our level of influence, our representation in governance and accountability process. Sadly, aged policy actors have continued to play a significant role in making decisions and choices on our behalf, which we say time has come for us to be able to represent ourselves. But for us to represent ourselves, our motive, which is our objective, must be, and that is our vision must be very, 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 very clear. Because the representation of people who are not people are not youth. We've seen people misrepresenting facts and priorities of young people. There are people actually who think that we need to hold wheelbarrows. I am. This is because somebody has misinterpreted our decisions, our choices, and the facts and the priorities around us. And somebody somewhere sits and thinks that for us as youth, our priority is to actually is to have a wheelbarrow or to have mkokoteni. All this is because people who are making decisions on behalf of young people are not young people. For us right now, we want tablets, we want laptops, but not what we are being told today. So I will say that the time has come for us as young people to send one of our own, but we have to articulate what the issue that one of our own must address. Of course, I will say this, that aged politicians have continued to take advantage of youth vulnerability in this country. They have continued to take advantage of our desperation and our underrepresentation to incite us as young people into causing violence, especially during election. This has to be addressed. So in conclusion, I will say that for us to promote the only way to which young people, the government or we can promote the participation of youth in public governance and accountability in Kenya, I will say that mechanisms should be put in place to enhance the capacity of government departments to be able to create a conducive environment that will allow youth participation and contribution in governance and accountability. That we need. The second thing, we know that it will require developing the capacity of youth themselves through awareness campaigns such as this, what we are doing today, through training, through strengthening of youth networks, and most importantly, as we saw in the earlier video, creating platforms for inclusive involvement and engagement between youth and policy actors. That is my parting shot, Mr. Wekesa.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Edewa and Abok, for honoring our invitation to this station and helping us to converse through a number of issues concerning the youth in this country and even globally, because the issues of youth apply to any given country. In my summary, I will say that Paul's own letter to the young man called Timothy had 5 pillars. The first pillar, Paul said that be courageous or be bold. And this is what youth need to do. They say that the first virtue of a human being is actually courage. When you are courageous, everything else seems to align towards your way because it gives way. Everything else gives way. So you have to be bold. You have to be courageous. Things may not be easy, yes, but you have to take the first step of boldness. And then the rest of the things will happen. The second pillar in the letter of an open letter of Paul to the young man Timothy was be strong. You see, being bold has something to do with attitude. Being strong has something to do with building capacity. You know, for youths to be, and I've picked from our guests, for youths to be effective in this generation or in any other place or fraternity, they need to build capacity. We've been told we need to acquire soft skills. We've been told we need to train, we need education, we need exposure, we need to interact and just have even awareness of what is happening around us. You see, we live in a world where people compartmentalize even information. I'm a career person, I'm a spiritual being, I'm a business person. And so sometimes we compartmentalize life, and in the process we become skewed even in our view of the world. There are people even who they call themselves apolitical. So they don't even want anything to do with leadership and governance. They think that's not their thing. But when it comes to division of resources, they miss out because they realize the so-called the politicians are actually given power to handle our resources. And so when you are away, asiyekuwa hapo na lake halipo. So you'll find yourself struggling to access the resources that are needed to build your life, the resources you need to use to move to the next step. So the third pillar in Paul's letter to Timothy was needs to be focused on God. You need a horizontal component, not horizontal, vertical component. You need to connect with the power and the energy, the forces that rules the earth, and you need to connect to your maker. And that's how you can be able to influence. In fact, from our topic, we have written that young people as change makers. I can extract the word maker. You see, God is our maker. And you see, for us to be effective, we need to be makers of things. We need to be initiators. We need to be creators. We need to be originators. It's true we need government to do particular things to us to create an environment for us to thrive, but also need to be initiators of things. Yeah. Okay. I like the analogy that that is in the good book where a servant of Abraham was sent to look for Isaac a wife, and then what happened that while he was on the way, the Lord led him to the house of the uncle of Abraham. So this is what happens. For you to succeed, you don't have to wait for somebody to come and pick you from where you are. You need to take a step of faith and begin doing something. Yes, government, even when government is giving out opportunities, when it's giving tax holiday, it's giving tax holiday to people who have businesses. It's not giving tax holiday for people who are seated at home. That tax holiday will not help you if at all you're doing nothing. So what it means is a youth, you need to pick something that you think you can do and do it with all your mighty. Someone said that I may not be a professor, I may not be the president, but if my only opportunity I have is to be a watchman, then I have to be the best watchman. And one of the even people who are the watchmen, the best watchmen, are the people who guard even the president. So you can rise in the rank of your portfolio. Upward social mobility, you need to think about upward social mobility. Kama ulianza kuuza njuku, yes, it's a good thing, but don't sell njuku forever. You need to think of moving to the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level. Even as you look for help through government and other people and other agencies that are there to support you. But first of all, you have to make the first step yourself and convince yourself that there's something you are created, there's an innate power and potential that is created within you that needs to be fulfilled. The fourth thing that Paul advised the young man Timothy was to make disciples. Now, I will not use this in the context of the gospel, but I'm just using it in the context of the youth. We have talked about the third thing as we having a vertical component with our God. So the fourth component is have a horizontal component. Make networks, have networks with people. Create people who believe in your ideas, or connect with people who believe in your ideas, who are going in the same direction you're going. Connect with friends who can add value and who can buy even into your vision. That's how we grow. So as you grow vertically, connecting with God, the creator of the universe, you connect with the people. They normally say that whatever you want may be in the next maybe 6 people that are around you. So there are people who hold the key to your success, but if you don't connect with people, you may not exploit your potential. So we were created to be social beings, and we were created to work in a team. So don't be a lone ranger. Find people who are doing what you are doing, or who understands what you are pursuing, and then connect them to exploit your potential. The last thing I find in Paul's letter to Timothy was to stay on fire, to be passionate. So don't lose your fire. Fire is the fuel you have. It is that you have that intrinsic motivation. You know, most people work on motivational handouts. You want each morning someone to send you a motivational quote. That one cannot inspire you to achieve what you want to achieve. You need to have an intrinsic motivation that it, regardless of what a book or Apollo says, you are staying focused, you are passionate, you know what you want in life, and you are focusing on that thing you want until you achieve it. It doesn't matter how many people will let you down. It doesn't matter how many people will talk you down. It doesn't matter how many people will ignore you. It doesn't matter how many people will criticize you, will tell you are going nowhere. That thing you're trying, everybody, even my grandfather tried and never succeeded. It doesn't matter how many people will talk you down. Stay focused and stay focused. The last thing I want to say away from Paul was John. He said that I write to you young men because you are strong and you have defeated the evil one. We have the ability to conquer the challenges that are around us. We have the power to conquer the challenges. What one of the presidential candidates calls the crocodiles. We have the ability to conquer the crocodiles until we reach to the promised land. So don't give up, don't shy away, just believe in yourself and you will be successful. I believe it has been a good session, inspiring and also informative. Thank you, Apollo. Thank you, Abog, for that wonderful session. Okay, next, every Wednesday we will be having topical issues. We will be bringing different topics to tap into information from different fraternities of life so that we can be effective in this life. Otherwise, our current, the normal current affairs shows will continue as normal. Thank you so much. Have a blessed night.